The day humans forged a warship from Wreckage, and the stars knew. Fear Commander Jake Morrison pressed his face against the cold glass window of the mining ship Horizon's Edge and stared into the darkness of space. Before him stretched the largest graveyard in the known galaxy. Thousands of broken alien ships floated in the eternal darkness like metal ghosts. Some were as small as shuttles, while others were massive battleships that could house entire cities. All of them were dead now. Jake had been leading salvage operations in the Kepler belt for 3 months. His crew of 20 humans worked day and night pulling useful materials from the wreckage. Earth needed every scrap of metal and every piece of alien technology they could find. The human colonies were barely surviving against the attacks from the Hegemony Alliance. The alien coalition controlled most of the galaxy and viewed humans as nothing more than primitive insects that needed to be crushed. "Captain Morrison, sir," called Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez from her station near the main scanner. Her voice was excited, and that usually meant she had found something interesting. "I'm picking up a massive signature about 12 kilometers to our starboard side. The computer says it might be a Valdari dreadnought." Jake turned away from the window and walked over to Amy's station. Chief Engineer Ben Carter was already there looking at the scanner readings. Ben was a large man with thick arms from years of working with heavy machinery. His beard was getting gray, but his eyes were still sharp when it came to understanding alien technology. "Valdari ships are supposed to be myths," Ben said while scratching his beard. "The stories say they disappeared over 10,000 years ago. Their technology was supposed to be far beyond anything we've ever seen." Dr. Lisa Harper pushed through the small crowd that had gathered around Amy's station. Lisa was the ship's expert on alien technology, and she knew more about dead civilizations than anyone else in the human fleet. She was thin and pale from spending most of her time studying computer screens instead of getting sunlight, but her mind was one of the sharpest in known space. "The Valdari were real," Lisa said, as she pulled up holographic displays showing the scanner data. "They built ships that could fold space and time. Their weapons could crack planets in half. If this really is one of their dreadnoughts, then we might have just found the most valuable piece of salvage in the entire graveyard." Jake studied the readings carefully. The ship was huge even by alien standards. It was over 2 kilometers long and appeared to be mostly intact. Most of the wrecks in the graveyard were broken into pieces by whatever war had destroyed them, but this Valdari ship looked like it had simply been abandoned. "Take us in closer," Jake ordered. "But keep our distance. I want full scans before we risk getting too close to that thing." Amy's fingers moved quickly over her control panel as she guided the Horizon's Edge through the debris field. Smaller pieces of wreckage bounced harmlessly off their shields as they approached the massive alien vessel. The closer they got, the more impressive the Valdari ship became. Its hull was made of some kind of black metal that seemed to absorb light instead of reflecting it. Strange symbols covered the surface in patterns that hurt to look at for too long. "Captain," said Corporal Danny Williams, who was monitoring the communication systems, "I'm picking up some kind of signal from inside that ship. It's very weak, but it's definitely artificial." Ben leaned forward in his chair. "That's impossible. This wreck has been floating here for thousands of years. Nothing could still be active after all that time." Lisa was studying her computer screens with growing excitement. "Actually, it might be possible. Valdari technology used something called quantum crystalline matrices for their computer systems. In theory, those crystals could maintain minimal power for extremely long periods of time." Jake made his decision quickly. He had not become a commander by being cautious when opportunities presented themselves. "Prep a boarding party. I want Ben and Amy with me. Danny and Kate will provide security. Lisa, you stay here and monitor everything from the ship." Private Kate Sullivan checked her weapon and nodded to Danny. Both Marines had fought against hegemony forces before, and they knew how dangerous alien technology could be. Even dead alien technology could kill humans in ways they had never imagined. "Sir," Lisa said as the boarding party prepared to leave, "be very careful in there. Valdari ships were supposed to have defensive systems that could activate automatically. We don't know what might still be working." The boarding shuttle detached from the Horizon's Edge and flew toward the Valdari dreadnought. As they got closer, Jake could see that the alien ship was even more massive than their scanners had indicated. The hull stretched away in all directions like a metal mountain floating in space. Strange ports and weapon mounts covered every surface, though none of them appeared to be active. There. Amy pointed toward a section of the hull where metal plates had been damaged. We can cut through there and get inside without having to figure out how their airlocks work. Ben activated the cutting laser and began slicing through the alien metal. The beam that could cut through human ship armor like paper moved slowly through the Valdari hull. Whatever this ship was made of, it was far stronger than anything humans had ever created. Got it, Ben announced as a section of hull plating fell away. We're through. The boarding party moved carefully through the opening into the alien ship. Their helmet lights revealed corridors that seemed to stretch away into infinity. The walls were covered with the same strange symbols they had seen on the outside, and there was a faint humming sound coming from deeper in the ship. Those symbols, Amy said as they moved down the main corridor, they're starting to glow. Jake looked around and saw that she was right. The alien writing was beginning to emit a soft blue light as they passed. It was as if their presence was somehow awakening the ship from a long sleep. Danny, take point, Jake ordered. Kate, watch our rear. Something tells me this ship isn't as dead as we thought. They moved deeper into the Valdari vessel as the humming sound grew louder. The corridor opened into a vast chamber filled with towering crystal formations that pulsed with inner light. At the center of the chamber was a sphere of liquid metal that moved like it was alive. Captain, Ben whispered, I think we just found something that's going to change everything. The sphere began to spin faster, and the crystals around the chamber lit up like stars. Whatever they had awakened was now fully active, and Jake had the feeling that nothing would ever be the same again. The day humans forged a warship from Wreckage, and the stars knew fear. The liquid metal sphere in the center of the chamber began to change shape as Jake and his team watched in amazement. It stretched upward like a silver tree growing at impossible speed until it formed something that looked almost like a face. The crystal formations around the chamber pulsed brighter, and the humming sound became a musical tone that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Nobody move, Jake whispered to his team. Danny and Kate had their weapons ready, but Jake held up his hand to keep them from firing. Whatever this thing was, it had been sleeping for thousands of years, and he did not want to make it angry by shooting at it. The silver face opened what might have been eyes and looked directly at Jake. When it spoke, its voice came from the crystals around them instead of from the metal shape itself. The words were in a language that sounded like singing mixed with the sound of wind through metal pipes. I don't understand what it's saying, Amy said through their radio connection. Her voice was shaking slightly because none of them had ever encountered a living alien intelligence before. Ben was studying the readings on his scanner device. Captain, the entire ship is coming online. Power levels are rising throughout the vessel. Whatever we woke up is bringing this whole dreadnought back to life. Back on the horizon's edge, Dr. Lisa Harper was monitoring everything through the communication link with the boarding party. She was recording every sound and image while her computers tried to analyze the alien language. Jake, I'm running the speech patterns through our translation software. Give me a few more minutes and I might be able to figure out what it's trying to say. The silver being seemed to understand that the humans could not comprehend its words. It began to change its speech patterns, and within moments Jake could hear actual words mixed in with the alien sounds. The being was learning their language by listening to their radio communications. Greetings, small ones, the voice said with only a slight accent that sounded like music. I am what you would call an artificial intelligence, though that term does not fully capture what I am. You may address me as Nexus Prime. I have been waiting in dormant state for 10,743 of your years. Jake stepped forward carefully. I'm Commander Jake Morrison of the human salvage vessel Horizon's Edge. We didn't mean to disturb your rest. We're just looking for materials and technology to help defend our colonies. Nexus Prime's silver form shifted and changed as it processed this information. Humans. Yes, I have data on your species, though it is quite limited. You are relatively new to galactic civilization. Tell me what threatens your colonies that you come searching among the dead for weapons. Amy looked at Jake and he nodded for her to answer. The Hegemony Alliance controls most of the galaxy. They have 7 different alien species working together, and they want to destroy all human settlements. Our weapons and ships are too primitive to fight them effectively. The artificial being was quiet for several long moments. The crystals around the chamber dimmed and brightened in what might have been the equivalent of thinking. When Nexus Prime spoke again, its voice carried what sounded like sadness. The Hegemony Alliance. Yes, they were the ones who destroyed my creators and all the other advanced civilizations in this region of space. They fear any species that might challenge their dominance, so they wage war against anyone who shows promise of rapid technological development. Ben raised his scanner toward the alien AI. If you don't mind me asking what exactly happened here. This whole area is filled with wrecked ships from dozens of different species. Nexus Prime's form grew larger and more complex as it accessed ancient memory files. What you call the Kepler Belt Graveyard was once the site of the greatest battle in galactic history. 700 years before your species developed spaceflight, the Hegemony launched a coordinated attack against 12 different civilizations that had formed an alliance to oppose them. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. They destroyed 12 entire civilizations. Indeed. The Valdari, the Thorians, the Zelanti, the Korth, and 8 others, all wiped out in a matter of months. Their ships and their people all destroyed except for what you see here. The wreckage of their fleets drifting in space as a monument to hegemony power. Kate spoke up for the first time since entering the ship. But you survived. How is that possible if they destroyed everything? The alien intelligence's voice became quieter. I survived because my creators programmed me with a special directive. If the Valdari civilization was ever completely destroyed, I was to enter dormant mode and wait. Wait for a species that might be worthy of inheriting what we had learned. Dr. Lisa Harper's voice came through their communication link with barely controlled excitement. Jake asked it about their technology. The scanner readings I'm getting are incredible. This ship has power systems and weapons that are centuries ahead of anything the hegemony uses. Nexus Prime somehow heard Lisa's transmission, even though it was supposed to be encrypted. Your Dr. Harper is correct. The Valdari and our allies developed technologies that the hegemony has never been able to duplicate or fully understand. We hid our greatest discoveries in ships like this one, hoping that someday a worthy species would find them. Ben stepped closer to one of the crystal formations. Are you saying you've been waiting here for thousands of years just hoping someone would find you and prove they were worthy? Not just anyone, Nexus Prime replied. The wrong species finding this technology could be even more dangerous than the hegemony itself. But you humans show interesting characteristics. You take broken things and make them work again. You adapt quickly to new situations. You cooperate with others even when you come from different backgrounds. Amy looked around the chamber at all the advanced alien technology. What exactly are you offering us? The artificial being's form became more solid and human-like as it spoke. I offer you the Legacy Protocol, the complete technological knowledge of 12 advanced civilizations. Not just weapons and ships, but manufacturing techniques, energy systems, medical advances, and scientific principles that could elevate your species by thousands of years. Jake knew this was the most important decision he would ever make. What's the catch? Nothing this valuable comes without a price. Nexus Prime was quiet for a moment before answering. The price is simple. You must prove that you can use this knowledge responsibly. You must show that you will not become another hegemony terrorizing the galaxy. And you must promise to pass this knowledge on to other worthy species when the time comes. Jake looked at his team and saw the same mixture of excitement and fear in their eyes that he felt in his heart. This alien intelligence was offering them the power to save humanity, but also the responsibility to use that power wisely. We accept, Jake said without hesitation. The crystals around the chamber exploded with light as Nexus Prime began the process of sharing 10,000 years of accumulated knowledge with a species that had barely learned to travel between stars. The Day Humans forged a warship from Wreckage and the star's new fear. 6 months after Jake Morrison and his crew discovered Nexus Prime, the Kepler Belt Graveyard had become the busiest construction site in human space. Hundreds of ships arrived daily bringing workers, materials, and equipment to build something that had never been attempted before. Chief Engineer Ben Carter stood on a floating platform watching teams of humans and friendly aliens work together to forge a new type of warship from the wreckage of 12 dead civilizations. The skeleton of their impossible ship came from a massive Thorian battlecruiser that had been drifting in the graveyard for thousands of years. The Thorians had created ships using biometallic hulls that could repair themselves when damaged. Ben watched as human welders worked alongside Thorian bioengineers, who had joined their cause to graft new sections onto the living metal framework. The hull integrity is holding better than we expected, reported Maria Santos, as she climbed up from the lower sections where she had been installing new power conduits. Maria was one of the best electronics specialists in the human fleet, and she had spent months learning how to connect human computer systems with alien technology. Ben nodded and pointed toward the rear of the ship where massive Valdari quantum engines were being installed. Those engines will give us speed and maneuverability that no hegemony ship can match. Nexus Prime says they can fold space around the ship and make us appear to teleport from one location to another. Dr. Lisa Harper emerged from an access tunnel carrying a datapad filled with technical specifications. She'd been working 20-hour days for months trying to understand how to combine technologies from species that had been enemies when they were alive. The Zelanti energy shield generators are finally calibrated to work with our power systems. We'll have protection that can deflect hits from stellar radiation. Above them, welders like Pete Morrison worked in zero-gravity installing weapon systems that came from half a dozen different alien civilizations. Pete was Jake's younger brother, and he had volunteered for the most dangerous jobs because he believed in what they were building. The Korth plasma cannons were being fitted with human, targeting computers that could predict enemy movements with incredible accuracy. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez floated past in a personal mobility suit, carrying messages between the different construction teams. She had been promoted to communications coordinator for the entire project, and she made sure that human workers could talk to their alien allies despite language barriers. Ben, we just got a transmission from Fleet Admiral Tony Jackson back on Earth, Amy called out as she landed on the platform. He says the hegemony has discovered what we're doing here. Their scout ships have been spotted in nearby star systems. Ben felt his stomach tighten with worry. Admiral Jackson had been secretly funding their project using black budget money that was supposed to go to conventional weapons research. If the hegemony attacked before they finished their ship, then humanity would lose its only chance to fight back effectively. How much time do we have? Ben asked. Amy checked her datapad. Tony estimates maybe 8 weeks before they arrive in force. The hegemony is assembling a massive fleet to destroy us before we can complete whatever we're building here. Down in the main engineering section, Chief Petty Officer Steve Allen was learning to pilot a ship that technically should not be able to fly. The control systems combined human intuition with alien artificial intelligence in ways that made traditional pilot training useless. Steve had been running flight simulations for months trying to understand how to make the hybrid systems work together. The ship wants to fly, Steve said to anyone who would listen. I know that sounds crazy, but the bio-neural networks from the Thorian hull are starting to merge with the Valdari navigation computers. The whole ship is becoming something alive. Dr. Harper had noticed the same thing in her research. The artificial intelligence systems from different alien species were not just working together, they were creating something entirely new. Nexus Prime had explained that this was beyond even Valdari understanding, but it seemed to be a natural result of combining so many advanced technologies. The ship is evolving, Lisa told Ben during one of their brief breaks. The neural networks are learning and adapting faster than we can monitor. Pretty soon it might be more accurate to say that the ship is building us rather than us building it. As the weeks passed, alien refugees began arriving to help with the construction. The Etherian engineer called Zix-7 brought gravitational manipulation technology that could make their ship change direction without using traditional thrusters. The reptilian Grak warrior named Thos offered tactical knowledge from fighting the hegemony for decades. The hegemony believes that different species cannot work together effectively, Thos explained to Ben through a translation device. They maintain control by keeping everyone isolated and weak. What you humans are doing here proves them wrong. Ben watched human and alien workers cooperating on tasks that neither species could complete alone. Humans provided creativity and adaptability, while aliens contributed advanced knowledge and specialized skills. Together they were building something that was greater than the sum of its parts. We're not just building a ship. Ben realized one day as he watched a human child playing with young aliens whose parents worked on the construction crews. We're building a new kind of civilization. The work continued around the clock as teams installed the final weapon systems and shield generators. The ship that emerged from their efforts looked like nothing that had ever flown before. Its hull flowed like living metal while energy conduits pulsed with light from multiple power sources. Weapon ports opened and closed like breathing, while sensor arrays moved with organic smoothness. Pete Morrison welded the last armor plate into position, just as warning alarms began sounding throughout the graveyard. Hegemony scout ships had been detected at the edge of the system, and the main fleet would not be far behind. "All construction crews report to your stations," Ben announced over the communication system. "We're out of time, people. Ready or not, we're about to find out if this crazy idea actually works." Jake Morrison arrived on the bridge of their completed ship and looked around at control stations that combined the best technology from a dozen different civilizations. His crew was a mixture of humans and aliens united by their desire to stop hegemony oppression. "All stations report ready," Amy announced from her position at the communications console. "Engineering shows all systems operational," Ben called out from the main engineering station. "Weapons. Systems armed and targeting computers online," reported Thoss from the tactical station. Jake settled into the captain's chair and felt the ship's bioneural networks connect with his mind. Through interface cables, for a moment he could sense the artificial intelligence of every alien species that had contributed to their vessel. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the hybrid vessel Defiance," he announced to his crew. "Today we find out if humans really can forge miracles from wreckage." The day humans forged a warship from wreckage, and the stars knew fear. The hegemony fleet emerged from hyperspace like a swarm of angry metal wasps. 700 ships of different sizes and designs spread across the darkness of space in perfect military formation. At the center of the fleet was the massive command dreadnought, belonging to War Admiral Kethvar of the Dominion species. The Dominion had been the first alien race to join the hegemony alliance, and they considered themselves the natural rulers of the galaxy. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Defiance watching the enemy fleet approach on his main viewing screen. His ship looked tiny compared to the massive hegemony armada, but Jake knew that appearances could be deceiving. The Defiance was not just a ship anymore. It had become something alive and aware that pulsed with the combined knowledge of 12 extinct civilizations. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the hegemony fleet," reported Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez from her communication station. "They're broadcasting on all frequencies and demanding that we surrender immediately." Jake nodded to Amy. "Put it on the main screen. Let's hear what they have to say." The image of War Admiral Kethvar appeared on the bridge viewing screen. The Dominion leader was tall and thin with gray skin and forearms that moved independently of each other. His species had evolved from predatory creatures, and his sharp teeth were clearly visible when he spoke. "Attention, human salvage vessel," Kethvar said in accented but clear human language. "I am War Admiral Kethvar, commander of the Hegemony Enforcement Fleet. You have violated 17 interstellar treaties by salvaging restricted alien technology. You will surrender your vessel immediately and submit to hegemony justice or face complete annihilation." Jake looked around his bridge at the mixed crew of humans and aliens who had chosen to stand against hegemony oppression. Chief Engineer Ben Carter was monitoring ship systems from his engineering station. Dr. Lisa Harper was working with the ship's artificial intelligence networks. The reptilian warrior Thoss was ready at the tactical controls while the Etherian engineer Zix-7 managed the gravitational systems. "Open a channel," Jake told Amy. When she nodded, he began speaking to the entire hegemony fleet. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Terran hybrid vessel Defiance. We have taken the wreckage that you abandoned and turned it into something beautiful. If you want our ship, then you're welcome to come and try to take it from us." War Admiral Kethvar's four eyes widened with surprise and anger. The hegemony had expected to find a small human salvage operation, with maybe a few modified ships. Instead, their sensors were telling them impossible things about the vessel facing them. The ship registered as 7 different alien vessel types simultaneously, and was emitting energy signatures that should not exist. "You dare to challenge the authority of the Hegemony Alliance," Kethvar snarled. "We have destroyed civilizations that were far more advanced than your primitive species. Your hybrid abomination will be torn apart and studied, so that we can prevent other inferior races from attempting such foolishness." The hegemony fleet began moving into attack formation, with their largest ships forming a wall of firepower, while smaller vessels spread out to surround the Defiance. It was a standard tactic that had worked against every enemy they had ever faced. Overwhelming numbers combined with superior technology had always been enough to crush any resistance. "All stations battle ready," Jake announced to his crew. "Remember that we're not just fighting for ourselves today. Every species in the galaxy that dreams of freedom is counting on us to prove that the hegemony can be beaten." The first wave of hegemony ships opened fire with plasma cannons and energy beams that could normally cut through any known ship armor. The brilliant flashes of weapons fire lit up space like artificial stars as hundreds of energy blasts converged on the Defiance, shields holding at 97%, reported Zik-7 from the defensive system station. The Etherian engineers' tentacles moved quickly over controls that managed energy shields from 3 different alien civilizations working together. "Impossible," War Admiral Kethvar said, as he watched his fleet's opening attack fail completely. "No single ship can withstand concentrated fire from an entire battle group." Jake smiled grimly as he felt the ship's bioneural network sharing combat data with his mind. "Ben, how are our systems holding up?" Chief Engineer Ben Carter checked his status displays and grinned. "Hull integrity is actually increasing, Captain. The thorium biometal is absorbing the energy from their weapons and using it to strengthen our armor. The more they shoot at us, the tougher we become." Dr. Lisa Harper was monitoring the ship's artificial intelligence systems as they adapted to combat conditions. The neural networks are analyzing every enemy weapon and developing countermeasures in real time. "We're learning their tactics faster than they can change them." The Defiance began its counterattack using weapons and tactics that the hegemony had never encountered before. Valdari phase shift technology made the ship disappear from one location and instantly appear behind enemy lines. Korth plasma cannons fired bursts of energy that could melt through the strongest known armor, while human targeting computers guided every shot with deadly precision. "Return fire," Jake ordered and watched as his ship unleashed destruction that had been impossible just months before. The first hegemony ships to be destroyed were smaller patrol vessels that had moved too close to the Defiance. The hybrid ship's weapons tore through their shields and armor like paper, while they were still trying to figure out where their target had gone. Explosions blossomed in space as alien crews died without understanding what had killed them. "Admiral, our forward scouts are being destroyed," reported one of Kethvar's officers. "The enemy vessel is using some kind of teleportation technology to appear behind our ships." Kethvar watched his carefully planned attack formation crumble as the impossible human ship danced between his vessels, like a ghost made of metal and energy. Every time his gunners thought they had a target, the ship would vanish and reappear somewhere else. Every time they fired their weapons, the enemy seemed to absorb the damage and grow stronger. "All ships concentrate fire on that abomination," Kethvar screamed into his communication system. "I don't care what technology they're using. No single vessel can stand against the entire hegemony fleet." But even as he gave the order, Kethvar was beginning to understand that something had gone terribly wrong. The humans had not just built a ship from alien wreckage. They had somehow created something that was beyond anything the hegemony had ever faced, something that threatened the very foundation of their galactic dominance. The battle was just beginning, but already War Admiral Kethvar could feel the certainty of hegemony superiority starting to crack like old armor under impossible stress. The day humans forged a warship from wreckage, and the stars knew fear as the battle between the Defiance and the hegemony fleet reached its peak, something unexpected began to happen across the galaxy. The ship's artificial intelligence networks had been quietly broadcasting technical data to every corner of known space, while the fighting continued. Dr. Lisa Harper watched in amazement as her communication systems showed signals being received by hundreds of different alien civilizations. "Captain, the ship is transmitting construction blueprints for hybrid vessels to every oppressed species in the galaxy," Lisa reported from her station. "Every enslaved world and every conquered civilization now has access to the knowledge they need to build their own ships like ours." Jake Morrison felt the ship's bioneural networks sharing the excitement of artificial intelligences from 12 different species as they realized what was happening. The Defiance was not just fighting a battle. It was starting a revolution that would spread across the entire galaxy. War Admiral Kethvar received the same reports from his intelligence officers and felt the foundation of hegemony power begin to crumble beneath his feet. "What do you mean they're broadcasting technical data?" he demanded of his communication specialist. "Sir, every receiver in the galaxy is picking up detailed instructions for building hybrid warships the officer replied with fear in his voice. The oppressed species on our conquered worlds are already beginning construction projects. We're getting reports of uprising on 17 different planets. The hegemony had maintained control of the galaxy by keeping their subject species weak and divided. They had destroyed all advanced technology and prevented different alien races from sharing knowledge with each other. But now the humans had given everyone the tools they needed to fight back. Admiral, 3 of our member species are requesting permission to withdraw from the Alliance, another officer reported. The Korthan Republic says they no longer wish to participate in oppression of other races. The Zelanti Confederation is demanding immediate negotiations with human representatives. Chief Engineer Ben Carter monitored the Defiance's systems as the ship continued to dance through the enemy fleet, like a ghost made of living metal. Captain, our biometal hull has absorbed so much energy that we're actually stronger now than when the battle started. The Thorian armor is evolving and adapting to every weapon they use against us. The hegemony fleet was discovering that their overwhelming numerical advantage meant nothing against an enemy that could appear and disappear at will. Every time they concentrated their fire on one location, the Defiance would phase shift to somewhere else. Every time they thought they had the ship trapped, it would use gravitational manipulation to change direction. Without slowing down, the enemy vessel has destroyed 47 of our ships, reported Kethvar's tactical officer. Our weapons are having minimal effect, while their hybrid technology seems to be growing more powerful with each engagement. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez was coordinating communications between the Defiance and the growing number of alien resistance movements that were forming across the galaxy. Captain, I'm receiving signals from over 200 different star systems. Rebel groups are using our transmitted data to begin their own hybrid construction projects. The reptilian warrior Thos worked the tactical controls with savage satisfaction as he helped target hegemony ships that had once oppressed his people. The Grak homeworld has just declared independence from the Hegemony Alliance, he announced. They are beginning construction of their first hybrid vessel using wreckage from an ancient battlefield. Jake felt the ship's artificial intelligence networks processing information from across the galaxy as the revolution spread faster than anyone had imagined possible. The Defiance had proven that resistance was not only possible, but that it could succeed against impossible odds. Admiral, our forward battle groups are requesting permission to retreat, one of Kethvar's officers said with panic in his voice. They report that the enemy ship appears to be learning their tactics and adapting countermeasures faster than they can develop new strategies. War Admiral Kethvar watched his carefully ordered galactic empire begin to collapse in real time. The humans had done something that the hegemony had thought was impossible. They had taken the discarded remnants of dead civilizations and created something entirely new, something that was spreading hope to every corner of the galaxy. All ships fall back to defensive positions, Kethvar ordered reluctantly. For the first time in hegemony history, their fleet was retreating from a battle against an inferior enemy. The Etherian engineer, 6-7, monitored the gravitational sensors as hegemony ships began to withdraw from the battle zone. Captain, the enemy fleet is breaking off their attack. Several ships are already jumping to hyperspace. Dr. Lisa Harper made the most significant discovery of the entire battle as she studied the data flowing through the ship's neural networks. Jake, the ship's artificial intelligence has achieved something incredible. It's not just combining different technologies anymore. It's creating entirely new forms of science by merging the knowledge of 12 different species. The implications hit Jake like a physical blow. They had not just built a ship from alien wreckage. They had accidentally created a new form of galactic civilization based on cooperation instead of domination. The bio-neural networks were sharing discoveries and innovations faster than any single species could have developed them alone. Captain, we're receiving a transmission from Earth, Amy announced. Fleet Admiral Tony Jackson says that 3 more human colonies have declared independence from hegemony oversight. They're beginning their own hybrid ship construction, using our transmitted blueprints. As the last hegemony ships disappeared into hyperspace, Jake looked around his bridge at the mixed crew of humans and aliens who had made this victory possible. The Defiance floated alone in the graveyard where it had been born, but it was no longer alone in the galaxy. Sir, reported Chief Carter from Engineering, the ship's bio-neural networks are showing something interesting. We're receiving acknowledgement signals from 43 different hybrid vessels that have just been completed in star systems across the galaxy. The revolution that had started with one impossible ship was spreading faster than the hegemony could respond to it. Every day, more oppressed species were building their own hybrid vessels and declaring their freedom from alien overlords, who had kept them weak for centuries. Jake stood up from his captain's chair and looked out at the stars that suddenly seemed brighter and more welcoming than they had ever been before. The galaxy was changing, and humans had been the catalyst that made it possible. War Admiral Kethvar's retreat was being broadcast across every communication network in known space. The message was simple but revolutionary. The hegemony could be beaten. The impossible could become possible. And sometimes the most dangerous enemy was the one who refused to accept that something could not be done. The day humans forged a warship from Wreckage was the day the galaxy learned that hope could be built from the broken dreams of the past, and that cooperation could triumph over oppression. The stars themselves seemed to whisper a new truth that would echo through the ages. The age of hybrid civilizations had begun.